Howdy, folks. I'd like to apologize. Apparently, there was some technical difficulties on my end. I was broadcasting to the wrong channel. I apologize for that. However, I am back now. Um, Hopefully, we have fewer issues this go round. My name is Rod. This is Liberation Lighthouse, where we try to create a safe space for people dealing with anxiety, depression, trauma, suicidal ideation, all the good things in life, right? On tonight's episode, and it's going to be just me tonight. Chris will be joining us next week. But for tonight's episode, we are going to be going over, um, ooh, that does not look good, the drama triangle. And let me see what's going on with this. It's a night of technical difficulties. I apologize for that. All right, let's see. It didn't like it that way. Let's see this way. Okay, so the drama triangle or the Cartman drama triangle. For those of you that aren't aware, anytime you have any drama in your life, whether it be because of PTSD, anxiety, or depression, chances are you can break the roles that we are playing into three different people. And this is where the Cartman drama triangle comes into play. So, what is it? The Cartman drama triangle is a social model of human interaction proposed by Stephen B. Cartman. The triangle maps a type of destructive interaction that can occur among people in conflict. The drama triangle model is a tool used in psychotherapy, specifically transactional analysis. The triangle of actors in the drama are usually the persecutor, the victim, or the rescuer. How's that? I always think of like if you're old enough to remember Dudley Do-Right, the evil guy had that thin mustache and the top hat, and the victim was this young blonde lady that he had tied up and put on the railroad tracks. And of course, Dudley Do-Right was our, I guess he was a mounted police, like a Canadian Mountie, uh, you know, uh, riding his horse to the rescue. So I always have that in my mind as I think about the persecutor, the victim, and the rescuer. So Cartman describes how, in some cases, these roles were not undertaken in an honest manner to resolve the presenting problem, but were rather used fluidly and switched between roles. You switch roles between the actors to achieve unconscious goals, like getting the one up on the other person or whatever your agenda is. The outcome in such cases was that the actors would be left feeling justified or entrenched, and there would often be little to no change to the presenting problem and other more fundamental problems that were being birthed out of this. The theory. So Carpenter used the triangles to map conflicted or drama intense relationship transactions, right? The transactions between you and somebody else, and then another person that comes in. The triangle models the connection between personal responsibility and power in conflicts, and the destructive and shifting roles that people play. He defined three roles in the conflict: the persecutor, the rescuer, and the victim. Cartman placed these three roles on an inverted triangle and referred to them as being the three aspects or faces of drama. So here we have the triangle. You can see you have your persecutor. On the upper left-hand corner, it's all your fault, right? The rescuer, you need me to save you. And then at the bottom, you have the victim. Nothing's ever my fault. So the victim. And I'm trying to be playful with these. Please don't take it too seriously. I'm not making fun of anybody. I'm just trying to present this in a lighthearted manner. Okay. The victim. The victim in this model is not intended to represent an actual victim, but rather somebody who's feeling or acting like one, right? The victim seeks to convince themselves and others, that's the important part, convince themselves and others that they cannot do anything and nothing can be done and all attempts are futile despite how hard they are trying. One payoff for this stance is avoiding real change or acknowledging their true feelings, which may bring anxiety and risk. while feeling that they are doing all they can to escape it. As such, the victim's stance is poor me. The victim feels victimized, of course, oppressed, helpless, hopeless, powerless, ashamed, and seems unable to make decisions, solve problems, take pleasure in life, or achieve insight. The victim, if not being persecuted, will set someone else up in the role of persecutor, right? They will find a persecutor uh, to remain with a persecutor or to remain with a persecutor if one's already there. Battered wife syndrome, the wife won't leave the husband because, well, that's that's where they feel comfortable, right? They will also seek help creating one or more rescuers to save the day, who will in reality perpetuate the victim's negative feelings and leave the situation broadly unchanged. Nothing happens, right? The rescuer. The rescuer's line is the "Let me help you," a classic enabler, and that word to me it just kind of like defines it, the enabler, right? The rescuer feels guilty if they don't go to the rescue, and ultimately becomes angry and becomes a persecutor themselves, as if as their help fails to achieve change. Yet, their rescuing has a negative effect. It keeps the victim dependent and doesn't allow the victim permission to fail and experience the consequences of their choices. I'm thinking a little bit like helicopter parents, right? If the kid is even remotely doing anything that might, teach them a lesson, they come in, they scoop the child up. The child never learns to not touch the hot stove or not put a fork in the outlet. Not that you should do that, but maybe let them shot themselves once. They'll just do it one time, right? Again, funny. Okay. Let's see. The rewards derived from this rescue rule are that the focus is taken off the rescuer, who can also feel good for having tried and justified in their negative feelings to the other actors upon failing. It's like, well, I didn't do it, it didn't happen, but at least I tried, right? When they focus their energy on someone else, it enables them to ignore their own anxiety and their own issues. This rescue role is also pivotal because their actual primary interest is really on avoiding their own problems, disguised as concern for the victim's needs. And let me do an aside here, real quick. Over the years, I've had a couple of friends that loved being the rescuer, right? They just totally love this role. Not for the best reasons. They would often find themselves dating women that were in the victim role, right? It got to the point where it was almost comical, and I used to refer to these guys as Captain Save a Ho, right? They would find the girls out there that were having all kinds of issues, either with exes, parents, drugs, money, you name it, right? We always can find somebody that feels victimized. So they would come in, scoop them off their feet, try to save the day, and then a couple months down the road realize that it didn't really help, right? This person is still going through their drama. This person is still going through their issues. But now that they've done it once, the expectation was set that you got to come in and save the day again, right? If you helped me pay for rent last month, why won't you help me pay for rent this month, right? So again, rescuer, even though it sounds cool and you can be Dudley Do Right in this, I equate it more to being an enabler. And so does this triangle, the drama triangle. The persecutor. The persecutor insists that it's all your fault, referring to the victim. The persecutor tends to be controlling, blaming, critical, oppressive, angry, authoritarian, rigid, and superior. But if blamed, in turn, the persecutor can become defensive and switch roles. They are no longer the persecutor. Now they are the victim. Why are you attacking me? Right? If attacked forcefully by the rescuer and or the victim, in which case the victim can also switch roles and become the persecutor. I think of an old married couple, right? Where they're just kind of going at each other. You feel bad for one. It's like husband yells at wife seems a little timid, and then all of a sudden she snaps back and just like lets the husband have it. And they're just switching roles, right? One of them is being the persecutor, the other one's being the victim, and then the other one decides to be the persecutor and turning the original persecutor into the victim. So it's a back and forth, right? How bad can I make the other person feel? How bad are they making me feel, right? The beginning. So initially, The drama triangle arises when a person takes on the role of a victim or a persecutor. This person then feels the need to enlist other players into the conflict, right? Let me get somebody else in here because they're going to see it my way and I'm going to be right, right? That's what they're thinking at this point. Or woe is me, I need somebody to lean on, right? As often happens, a rescuer is then encouraged to enter the situation. These enlisted players take on roles on their own that are not static, right? They might turn into a victim, they might turn into a persecutor, and therefore various scenarios can occur. The victim might turn the rescuer, for example, turn on the rescuer, while the rescuer then switches to the persecutor. Okay, it happens, right? It's your fault I left my husband. I loved him. You told me I'd be better off. Now the victim is the persecutor. The rescuer then becomes the victim, or the rescuer can get mad and say, why aren't you doing what I'm, telling you to do? And therefore, they turn into a persecutor at that moment. Yep. All right. So the reason that the situation persists in that each participant has their frequently unconscious psychological wishes or needs met without having to acknowledge the broader dysfunction or harm done in the situation as a whole. Each participant is acting upon their own selfish needs rather than acting in a genuinely responsible or altruistic manner. Any character might ordinarily come on like a plaintive victim. It is now clear that the one can switch into the role of persecutor, providing that it's accidental. You made me do it, right? And one apologizes for it. I'm sorry I did that. Motivations. The motivations for the rescuer are the least obvious. In terms of the triangle, the rescuer has mixed or covert motives and benefits according to the rules of logic in some way from being the one that does the rescuing, one who rescues. The rescuer has a surface motive of resolving the problem and appears to make great efforts to solve it, right? But also has a hidden motive not to succeed or to succeed in a way in which they see some benefit out of it, right? If I rescue you, will you end up with me? Yeah. They may get a self-esteem boost, for example, or receive respected rescue status, or derive enjoyment from having someone depend on them and trust them and act in a way that ostentatiously seems to be trying to help, but at a deeper level can play upon the victim in order to continue getting that payoff, right? Now you have this person that is just completely relying on you for everything, and that's your payoff. The relationship between the victim and the rescuer may be one of codependency, right? You have a enabler effect going on. The rescuer keeps the victim dependent by encouraging their victimhood. The victim gets their needs met by having the rescuer take care of them, right? Participants generally tend to have a primary or habitual role: victim, rescuer, persecutor. When they enter into the drama triangle, participants first learn their habitual role in their family of origin. Even though participants each have roles in which they most identify, once in the triangle, you can rotate through all three positions. Each triangle has a payoff for those playing it. The antithesis of the drama triangle lies in discovering how to deprive the actors of their payoff, right? And our good old buddy JG just said, it is believed that early childhood traumas, along with the modeling of the triangle by the parents, can create that victim consciousness, right? We all go through trauma. You don't make it through life unscathed, and I'm sorry for that, but it's what we do with that trauma that makes us stronger, right? So if you're going through trauma as a kid and your parents are modeling this victim, persecutor, rescuer scenario for you constantly. I mean, it was even in cartoons. I remember it from Dudley Do-Right, right? So this is being modeled constantly. This is setting us up to grow up in that same vicious cycle, if you would. So early childhood traumas, like Mr. JG said, along with the modeling of the triangle by the parents, can create the victim consciousness. Okay. Therapy movement. So when did we start looking at this? Apparently, after World War II, therapists observed that while many battle torn veteran patients readjusted well after returning to their families, some did not, right? Some even regressed when they returned to their home environment. Researchers felt that they needed an explanation for this and began to explore the dynamics of family life, and thus began the family therapy movement, right? So we see something's going on, and like JG said, something's going on, so we better look at it a little bit more closely, right? Prior to this time, psychiatrists and psychoanalysts focused on the patient's already formed psyche and downplayed outside detractors. Intrinsic factors were addressed, and extrinsic reactions from the outside were considered as emanating from forces within the person. So, a couple of books have been written on the subject, right? First one is The Winner's Triangle, first published by A.C. Choi in 1980 as a therapeutic model for showing patients how to alter social transactions when entering a triangle at any of the three entry points. Choi recommends that anyone feeling like a victim think more in the terms of being vulnerable and caring, right? That anyone cast as a persecutor adopt an assertive posture, and anyone recruited to be a rescuer should react by being caring. So vulnerable, all right? Your victim is encouraged to accept their vulnerability, problem solve, and be more self-aware. Assertive. The persecutor should be encouraged to ask for what they want, being assertive, but do not be pushy or punishing the person. And lastly, caring. A rescuer should be encouraged to show concern and be caring, but not overreach and problem solve for others, right? And that's the hard part. Sometimes you really want to step in and help the other person out, but you have to let them do it for themselves. And lastly, The Power of Ted. I just finished this book. Great book, by the way. If you'd like to listen to it, it's on Audible. The Power of Ted was first published in 2009, and it recommends that the victim adopt an alternative role of creator, view the persecutor as a challenger, and enlist a coach instead of a rescuer. So, the creator, victims are encouraged to be outcome oriented as opposed to problem oriented and take responsibility for choosing their response to life challenges. They should focus on resolving dynamic tension, the difference between current reality and the envisioned goal or outcome, by taking incremental steps towards the outcomes that they are trying to achieve. Baby steps, right? Don't be the victim. You are now a creator. What is the outcome that you want to reach? What is that goal? What is your end game, right? Give you an example. I suffered from PTSD, right? While I was triggered, I would feel like a victim, right? In order for me to get over my PTSD, I had to create a goal. I am not going to allow these triggers to affect me anymore. What can I do? Baby steps, yoga, meditation, breath work, psychotherapy, talk sessions, counseling. And then lastly, medicinal, right? So those have been the steps that I have taken in order to not feel like a victim when triggered. Okay? Challenger. A victim is encouraged to see the persecutor as a person or situation that forces the creator to clarify their needs and focus on their learning and growth. If somebody is yelling at you or wanting something from you and demanding, and they're making you feel like the victim, well, one, you as a victim have to take this in a positive spin if you can, right? If they're beating you on a regular basis, you just got to get out of there. But if they're challenging you, right, the challenger needs to realize, what is it that I'm trying to get this person to learn? The victim needs to see this person as, what are they trying to teach me, right? And lastly, the coach. So a rescuer should be encouraged to ask questions intended to help the individual to make their own informed choices. What can you do about that? How could you do it? Why do you feel that way? Could you put a different spin on it? That kind of thing. The key difference between a rescuer and a coach is that the coach sees the creator as capable of making choices and solving their own problems. Being a fairly new parent, I can tell you I sometimes want to be the helicopter parent, right? I want to be the rescuer. However, I can't do that. I know in my heart of hearts that I got to let my kiddo make their own mistakes and learn from them, right? So after the kid makes a mistake, I come in as the coach, right? What did we learn? How can we apply it? Are we going to do that again? How could we have done it better, right? So a coach is going to ask questions that enable this creator, previously the victim, to see the possibilities for positive action and to focus on what they do want instead of what they don't want. Okay. One of the things that I keep repeating with my kid is she sometimes focuses on the bad thing about it, right? Oh, my pizza slice had a burnt mark on it. Well, yes, but you had a pizza, right? To concentrate on that part. We don't eat the burnt part. It's sad that part of it, part of the crust was burnt, and I know you like the crust. However, let's concentrate on the good side. You did have a slice of your favorite pizza, right? Or, whatever the situation is. I always try to encourage her to see the whole thing because she tends to sometimes look at just the negative, and I want her to not concentrate on that so much, to look at the positive. That is me coming in as a coach and then asking her questions. It's like, what could have been better? What could have been done? If nothing could have been done, accept it, right? And I don't mean to belittle or treat anybody that's having bigger issues with this, but it's just an example. And lastly, I'd like to reserve a little bit of time for questions. If anybody out there has any questions, I promise I won't play the Jeopardy song. I wish I had somebody here to mingle about, uh, but I will try to do a quick recap while we're doing this. Okay, so feel free to type in your questions. If there's anybody out there, I apologize for being late. Oh, looks like we have some comments. I'll be waiting on those comments to come in. And while we're waiting on the comments, I really like The Power of Ted, by the way. I listen to it on my walks. The idea that a victim can be a creator, right, is really empowering, especially when you've been in that role of a victim, right? Like I said, PTSD sometimes had me feeling like a victim, and then when somebody would, afterwards, after feeling like a victim, I would turn into Captain A-hole, right, which would be the persecutor, especially towards my loved ones or anybody who was around, right? So I would definitely, without the three people in my head were here, right? So I would definitely go from victim to persecutor. And as far as rescuer, sometimes you have to be your own rescuer, right? Okay. And we have some comments here by JG. First one says, I think it's important to remember that the triangle can exist with ourselves as well, not just others. Just like I was like I was saying, the whole victim, persecutor, and rescuer, we're all within this little package right here. And sometimes that's difficult to accept and to become aware of. But please, if you do realize that you are falling into this drama triangle, I really do recommend The Power of Ted. I'm not privy to Choi's book. Uh, let's see. The title was The Winner's Triangle. But it's got a different approach where you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you allow yourself to be, assertive, and you allow yourself to be caring. Okay, I like those three as well. Um, versus creator, challenger, and coach. And let's see, JG is commenting. It can also be seen and observed with structures and organizations like politics and religion. Definitely, definitely. I grew up Catholic. Not that I'm a practicing one, but I grew up Catholic. And if you know anything about the history of Catholicism, they were definitely the persecutors for a long time. Um, you know, yeah, yeah. If you have any Judaism in you, as I do as well, there's also that aspect of victimhood, right? There's a lot of inquisitions that happened to my people, to the Sephardic Jews of Spain, but that's neither here nor there. It's just something that happened, and it just goes to show you that religion is definitely able to take part in this trauma triangle. Politics, most definitely, on a regular basis, take their role in the drama triangle. And if you watch any news whatsoever, whether it be for politics or whatnot, you can see how they try to get their little role in there too, as whatever it is they're trying to achieve that day, whether they want to be the victim, the persecutor, or the rescuer. JG, can you give me okay, here we go. Let's see. JG comments, the best way to get out of the triangle is to be more self-aware with what you want and then be more direct in declaring it with others, as well as taking more personal responsibility for what happens. Yes. Yes, I totally agree. The key to all of this is just becoming self-aware. And it sounds simple, but it's not. It could take years. I am living proof that sometimes it could take many years before you become self-aware enough to start that progression, right? To start those baby steps into getting better. And some people may just not be ready for it. It can be difficult to leave something behind, especially when you've carried it with you for a long period of time. Okay. And feel free to jump in at any time. I'm just going to go ahead and read the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration information. So SAMHSA stands for the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. To find a facility near you, you can go online to https://findtreatment.gov. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 1-800-273-TALK or 1-800-273-8255. The Behavioral Health Treatment Locator online, https://findtreatment.samhsa.gov. And lastly, the SAMHSA National Helpline is 1-800-662-4357. Thank you very much for having joined us tonight. Again, my apologies for having the technical difficulties. I promise I'll be getting better at it. Baby steps. Have a good weekend. Have a great night. And hopefully you'll join us again next week, 7 p.m., same Bat Cave, same Bat Channel. Love you guys.